Most men think they get replaced because another man was better looking, more successful, more confident. But in many relationships, that's not what actually happens. A woman rarely disconnects emotionally overnight. What usually happens is much quieter. The emotional tension dies. The polarity fades. The relationship becomes emotionally predictable in a way that slowly kills desire. And the most dangerous part? Most men don't even notice it happening until she's already halfway gone emotionally. Because the men women struggle to replace are not always the loudest men, or the richest men. They're the men who understand one psychological truth most people completely overlook. And once you understand it, you stop chasing validation and start becoming emotionally unforgettable. There's a reason some men leave a permanent emotional imprint on the women they date. Not because they manipulated them, not because they played games, but because they understood something deeper about attraction, emotional safety, identity, and masculine presence. In this video, we're going to break down the psychology behind why certain men are deeply valued long-term, while others become emotionally replaceable no matter how much effort they give. We'll talk about emotional certainty, self-respect, emotional tension, attachment dynamics, and one powerful shift that changes how women experience you completely. And this matters because attraction isn't only about gaining attention, it's about creating emotional impact. A man meets a woman he deeply likes. At first, he's calm, grounded, interesting. But slowly, something changes. He starts revolving emotionally around her reactions. If she texts fast, he feels good. If she becomes distant, his mood collapses. If she seems uncertain, he panics internally. And without realizing it, he hands her emotional control over his identity. This is where attraction quietly begins to weaken. Because psychologically, people are drawn toward emotional self-possession. A man who remains connected to himself regardless of temporary emotional fluctuations feels emotionally solid. But a man who becomes emotionally dependent on validation starts feeling fragile, and fragility changes the emotional dynamic. This connects to attachment psychology. When someone becomes anxiously attached, they unconsciously begin prioritizing emotional reassurance over authentic connection. The relationship stops feeling free. It starts feeling emotionally heavy. Practical advice: never abandon your routines, mission, friendships, or emotional center to make someone your entire emotional world. The men who rarely get replaced have a strong internal identity before the relationship even begins, and that inner stability becomes emotionally magnetic over time. Which leads to the next thing women deeply remember. A lot of men believe attraction is maintained through quantity. More texting, more compliments, more reassurance, more availability. But emotionally mature women often respond more deeply to presence than pressure. Think about the difference. One man constantly floods her with attention, but feels emotionally scattered. Another man gives less attention overall. But when he's present, she feels fully seen. Calm eye contact, real listening, undivided attention, emotional steadiness. That experience leaves a deeper imprint, because human beings remember emotional experiences more than repetitive behaviors. Psychologically, this relates to emotional salience. Moments that feel emotionally grounded and authentic become more memorable than constant stimulation. This is why some men become emotionally unforgettable without constantly chasing attention. Their energy feels rare. Practical shift. When you're with a woman, stop trying to impress constantly. Be present instead. Listen carefully. Slow down your reactions. Stop performing. Most people are starved for real emotional presence in modern relationships, and the man who provides it naturally stands out. But there's another layer most men never notice until it's too late. A relationship begins with tension, curiosity, movement. But over time, many men unconsciously enter emotional stagnation. They stop challenging themselves, stop evolving, stop pursuing purpose outside the relationship. And slowly, the emotional energy changes. One of the core drivers of attraction is perceived vitality, not perfection, vitality. The feeling that someone is psychologically alive, growing, expanding. This doesn't mean becoming obsessed with status. It means maintaining momentum as a human being. Because when a man becomes emotionally passive, overly comfortable, and directionless, relationships often lose polarity. And polarity matters, especially in long-term attraction. Women often struggle to explain this feeling logically. They just say, something changed. What changed was energy. The relationship stopped feeling emotionally dynamic. Practical advice: keep building your life even inside the relationship. Stay connected to ambition, curiosity, health, discipline, not to keep her, but because stagnation slowly weakens self-respect first, and attraction second. And the next point explains why emotional strength matters more than perfection. A couple goes through tension. Maybe there's conflict, distance, stress. One man becomes reactive immediately, defensive, emotionally impulsive, needy. Another man stays calm without becoming cold. He communicates clearly, listens carefully, doesn't emotionally collapse under pressure. Guess which man leaves the deeper emotional impact? Psychologically, emotional memory is heavily shaped during emotionally intense moments, not peaceful ones. Anyone can appear attractive when everything feels easy, but emotional maturity reveals itself under stress. This connects to emotional regulation, one of the strongest predictors of relationship stability. Women deeply remember men who make conflict feel emotionally safe instead of emotionally chaotic. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions, it means managing them responsibly. Practical shift. During emotional tension, stop focusing on winning, focus on stability. Can you stay grounded while uncomfortable? Can you tolerate uncertainty without panicking? Because the men women struggle to replace are often the men who made emotional difficulty feel safe instead of destructive. Here's something most men never consider. Sometimes women don't miss the man after the breakup, they miss how they felt around him. Think about that carefully, because attraction is rarely attached only to looks, money, or status long-term. It attaches to emotional experience. So ask yourself honestly, what emotional experience do people consistently have around you? Calm, pressure, freedom, anxiety, safety, exhaustion? Because that answer changes everything. This is the deepest layer of all, because underneath most unhealthy relationship behavior sits fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of inadequacy, fear of not being enough. And fear changes behavior dramatically. A man afraid of losing a woman often becomes emotionally reactive. He over-explains, over-pursues, overcompensates, and ironically, those behaviors slowly weaken attraction. But men who are emotionally grounded understand something powerful. Love becomes healthier when it's chosen freely, not clung to desperately. That emotional difference is enormous. Psychologically, secure attachment creates space for authentic connection because it removes emotional coercion from the relationship. A secure man values connection deeply, without emotionally collapsing at the possibility of loss. And women feel that freedom. Now, this doesn't mean becoming detached or emotionless. It means your identity remains intact even when relationships become uncertain. Practical advice: build a life you genuinely respect outside of dating. Purpose, brotherhood, physical health, emotional discipline. Because when a man secretly believes losing a woman means losing himself, he unconsciously radiates emotional dependency. And dependency eventually suffocates attraction. But a grounded man? He loves fully without abandoning himself. That's rare. At the deepest level, people don't become unforgettable because they were perfect. They become unforgettable because of how they made others feel emotionally. Some men spend years trying to compete externally. More money, more status, more tactics. But emotional impact is created internally first. Through presence, self-respect, emotional steadiness, authenticity. And the painful truth is, many men lose themselves inside relationships trying to avoid being left. They shape-shift emotionally, abandon their center, seek constant reassurance. Not because they're weak, because they're afraid that if they stop performing, they'll stop being loved. But real masculine strength begins when a man realizes, I can deeply love someone without emotionally surrendering myself. That changes everything. Because the men women struggle to replace are not usually the men who chased hardest. They're the men who remained deeply connected to themselves while loving someone fully. And that balance feels rare in today's world. Call to action. Pal's outro, 13:30:15 out. If this resonated with you, start paying attention to where you may have abandoned yourself in past relationships. Not to blame yourself, but to understand yourself more honestly. And I want to ask you something for the comments. What quality makes someone emotionally unforgettable to you? Not impressive, unforgettable? Because that answer reveals a lot about what human beings actually value deep down. In the next video, we're going to explore the silent behaviors that make emotionally mature women slowly lose attraction, even in relationships that look healthy on the surface. And trust me, most men never see these patterns until it's already too late. Remember this: the strongest relationships are not built on emotional dependency. They're built on two people who can stand firmly on their own and still choose each other fully.